Yeah, it's a little wobbly. That's okay. I've got a few papers on there for that reason. No, you're good. You're good. All right, Raj, you kick it off.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to see you this morning. You're awake and you've already had all the caffeine you need. I hope. Some of it, yes. Well, welcome to Focus Group. And that's where I am.
I know.
Yeah.
Good morning.
We want to thank you for being here for the VACCRA program this morning. I want to first give a whole round of thanks to people who have made this happen. First of all, Georgia and Eddie from doing all the behind-the-scenes work to get this ready for us. And I want you to know that VACCRA now has a program committee, and you'll know some of these folks, Irene Caperton and John Taylor and Jerry Nixon and Barbara Rose. I want to thank also Bob Staples, who is secretary for the chapter, for all he's done to help with setup as well. And I want to give a big shout out to Bill Paulson, who's standing in the hall there, because he was the connection to these two gentlemen. And Bill, thank you so much. Appreciate it. We thank you also, if you've been up here before for one of the early meetings and for today, thank you for your consideration and cooperation as we learn to use this space. First of all, getting here and finding it, and then being present. Thank you so much. The program today is about 45 minutes, and we'll have time for Q&A. And the February topic we already have in place as well. On February 16th, that will be Lifestyles and Wellness. Florence Brooks is going to bring that, and it may be a series of looking through each of the pinnacle pathways of wellness. So that's the February topic. Today we want to welcome Tom Kirby and Kyle, and they are going to introduce more about their work that we have. We were to have an FBI staff person with us this morning, but he is on call this morning, and we hope that work for him goes smoothly today. You have name tags, or should have name tags, so that helps our speakers. And we also need to be sure that you've signed in for their requirements with their business. Tom Kirby is an investment advisor representative with Highland Partners Financial Services here in Richmond. Over the course of his professional career of 23 years in the finance industry, Kirby has held roles at Morgan Stanley, B.C. Ziegler Company, and Nicholas Company. And lost the sound? Keep going? Tom shares this quote about his work. As financial advisor, my greatest satisfaction comes from having a positive impact on the financial wellness of my clients. That's my purpose. Understanding a client's investment objectives helps us create a pathway forward and for financial well-being, and utilizing assets with that purpose in mind. Mr. Kirby specializes as a securities agent and investment advisor representative, assisting with estate planning, retirement planning, tax-efficient investing, insurance needs, and generational wealth planning. He's approved to work in Alabama, Arkansas, Florida, Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Michigan, New Jersey, New York, and North Carolina, Ohio, and Pennsylvania, Texas, and Virginia. Tom has served with Highland Partners since 2020. And with that, would you give him a seat if you're welcome?
Good morning, everyone. I want to thank Roger for that
nice introduction, and I want to thank Bill Paulson, who's hiding out in the hallway this morning, for making this possible to be here this morning. So what we wanted to bring to you this morning was how to identify and prevent frauds and scams. Particularly among the elderly, we see this as a growing concern and a growing issue, and it's a very personal issue for me. My mother, about 10 years ago, was scammed via phone call with a young lady pretending to be her granddaughter, saying that she was in trouble in Mexico. And my mom went to the Western Union and electronically wired about $15,000 to this place. And I have two other acquaintances that I know of whose families have been frauded in that manner. So it's a very personal thing for me to try to get the word out to prevent those frauds and scams, particularly with the elderly. So today I have Kyle Inglis with me, who is with Transamerica, and Transamerica's Advanced Planning Department has the information available on many different subjects that we find to be pertinent and financial well-being for folks. So Kyle is going to actually do the presentation this morning. As Roger alluded to, we had an FBI agent who was supposed to be here with us, but he's been planning for probably a couple of weeks, and they finally set a date where they had to do an arrest this morning. The gentleman that was going to be here is the head of the Richmond field office, who does fraud and scams with FBI, but also is the commander for the SWAT team, so he's out swatting today. So, Kyle, thanks for being here, and I'm going to turn it over to you.
Great. Thank you, Tom. Thank you very much this morning for all you being here this morning. Everyone wide awake? Had their breakfast?
Yes.
Yeah.
Their caffeine?
Yes.
All right. Instead of being called Kyle, you can call me the eye candy. I was brought in as the eye candy because the FBI guy is much more informative. And you might ask yourself, Transamerica Financial is a financial institution. How do you, Kyle, bring awareness or education to your folks as it pertains to fraud, scams, etc.? And I can tell you personally, just like Tom shared, I've had personal experience just last week. Had a gentleman send an email and said, hey, I've got a wire you need to approve for $1,859 on MoneyGram. Like, what MoneyGram? And so, of course, within minutes, my credit card company sends me a text, fraud alert, and I was able to stop it. But it truly has become an epidemic when it comes to fraud. And frankly, as I go through some of these slides today, you'll see glaringly obvious some of these things, but other practices are becoming more and more prevalent that are a little more sneaky. You see me over there? All right. Let me first give Tom a little plug. Tom and I worked together for the better part of 18 years. I'm out in the field. I live in Arlington, Virginia, where I left 3 inches of snow this morning. And I cover the whole state of Virginia. And my job, along with Tom's, is education first. Tom runs a wonderful financial planning practice and is someone who I know personally that does a wonderful job with retirement income planning. This is, I think, critical in Tom's perspective to educate first so that people are aware of what's out there. And this is one of very few topics. His planning process is holistic, looks at all the assets and liabilities to try to figure out where he can help add value. And of course, with that, he tries to incorporate protections into his business practice. So with that, let's jump right in. Again, my name is Kyle Inglis. I work for Transamerica Financial. You can rest your shoulders. I'll not be asking anything of you for business. There's no sales process here. This is purely education, I promise. All right. So I would say that knowledge is power. And if you're able to be knowledgeable on the subject of elder fraud, abuse, or scams, you are well equipped to understand what to look for, how to avoid being scammed, and then tell your next door neighbors, tell your friends, your loved ones, so they also know. I don't see anybody taking copious notes yet. We will give you the slide deck when we're done here, I promise. Elder fraud is a big deal. I mean, really is. We have seen folks that have been scammed, and especially in the elder community, you have a very short window to try to make up what's been lost. And in many cases, there is no room. So we try to be a really effective in the way that we bring the information out to educate folks, because this does affect millions of people annually, and I'll get into the numbers a little bit later. But the monetary estimates is between $3 and $30 billion of lost assets, and that's not a number we just say willy-nilly. It's scary. It can take a toll on people's emotional health and physical health, and I've seen actually one of our closest friends have shingles because of it. It was such a stressful experience that the toll was so intense. I will tell you this, and I know this from previous interactions. In many cases, this goes unreported. Why? Because of embarrassment, right? I cannot believe that just happened to me. I'm not going to tell anybody. We got to make awareness. Talk about it. There's fraud hotlines. I'll get that information as well at the end here. But there's a lot of reasons why it's not reported between embarrassment, doubt, dementia, we forgot, involves a direct member of our family. Yeah? That's a big one. And don't know necessarily who to contact. Like, what if I do get frauded, how do I make a phone call or an email or find out online how to report this activity? This is all education will provide you once we're done here today. The black screen of death. Oh no! Where did he go? Oh, there we go. The more you know, the better off you are. And as I said before, day in and day out, we're seeing these scammers get more creative with how they're trying to access your accounts and get you lured into any one of these scams. Anybody want to take a guess at the most common way that folks are scammed? Any guesses?
Fishing.
Fishing?
Credit card. Credit card.
Credit card calls, okay? Yes?
Calling grandma for help.
Oh my gosh, that's a big one. Yep, that's Tom just mentioned, yeah. We'll go into the top 10, but really quickly, as we just found out, this was back in 2022, a study was done, and there was over 1,509 complaints in their fraud line hotline in 1 month. In 1 month. January 2022. So it is, by all estimates, an epidemic. This is not just a one-off scenario. This is a pretty big and kind of a frightening stat. But the committee that has been assessed is the United States Senate Special Committee on Aging has looked at this, and they're now creating ways and more education beyond what we're doing as pamphlets and flyers and send those out through the government. So you'll more than likely get something in the mail. But let's dive right in. Let's go right into our first one here. Top 10, number 1, IRS impersonations. Number 2, robocalls, unsolicited phone calls from a credit card company or what have you. Sweepstakes, you won! You've won! I just need your bank account! Computer tech, this is one that really is sneaky. They may send you some malware and say, I can fix your computer, let me get you access. Now, elder financial abuse, grandparent scams, romance scams, I've fallen in love, need some money. Social Security impersonations, and pending lawsuits and identity theft. We'll uncover each one of these individually.
So just
Yep.
on number 3, the sweepstakes, you've won this contest thing, right? Just keep in mind that if you never entered a contest, you couldn't have won the contest, right? But they are playing on your emotions. But that, I hear people talking about, I got this phone call, they said I won $2,000 and all I needed to do was send them my bank account information so they could send the money. Well, it's going to be outgoing, not coming in. So, but that is just a huge way that they have figured out that they get easy access, particularly the elderly who are not thinking that, hey, wow, I won a contest.
Yep.
You can't win it if you didn't enter it. So just think about, I didn't enter that contest.
About 10 years ago, I will never forget, I got the email. It was, hi, Mr. Inglis, and there was already some misspellings, so my antenna's already up. I'm the Prince of Zimbabwe, and I've come into some money, and I need an account to send the money to. I'm like, wow, this is, I mean, the spelling was all off. You knew, like the red flags were everywhere, and there at the very bottom was a link to click on, and you can access, you know, my bank account by putting in yours in this link, and I'm like, all right, so, you know, delete. That was like 10 years ago, and they've gotten really creative with emails, robocalls, phishing. Someone said phishing back here, and then you get these little pop-ups in your inbox, your email, or on your screen if you're like working from your computer. But Tom's right. You know, it's interesting. These have gotten a little more creative and suspect, but here's some data for you. First of all, has anybody gotten a phone call from an IRS agent? Have you? Okay. Was it a legitimate IRS agent?
Of course not.
No. Okay. We've actually had research on this. The amount of phone calls they actually make to individuals is less than 2%. Of all the things they do, less than 2% of their work is to do outreach to individuals. It's such a random act that they would even call you. So your antenna should go up right away when a IRS agent says you're late on your taxes, or your back taxes are due, or whatever their scam is. They refer to that as spoofing, right? Impersonation or spoofing. And these people are greedy. Like I'm going to keep coming to that word, greedy, because in many cases, if they get you once, they'll come back and do it again. This is the most common IRS scam I've seen recently was, hey, you're about 15 days before your date is due for your back taxes. And you get the person all concerned, oh no, I didn't realize that, what happened? I thought I sent it in, or I thought it was already paid. And they'll say, well, we can get this taken care of right today. You just need to go down to the grocery store and get a Target gift card or an Amazon gift card and a prepaid car for $1,000 or $900, and we'll get that taken care of. But hang on, I thought you said the bill was $10,000. Well, we've got a system here where we can negotiate down the IRS, costs. And I'm thinking to myself, that worked? That really worked? Golly. But these are big. This one is the big one. The go to the store, go to Target, get a prepaid gift card, and then read the number on the back of the gift card, and we'll redeem it for you, and we'll call this a day. By the way, IRS very seldom ever calls you on a demand for payments. Very seldom, ever. You always have a right to appeal a claim that you were owed or due taxes. They will never call you for a credit card number ever. That is actually written in one of their disclosures, and they'll never send a law enforcement individual to your home. So you'll get that too. Well, but if you don't do that, we'll send someone out to your house. Another scare tactic, right? Again, these are things that I think if you have at least the inclination and you've heard some of these things, your antenna should go up automatically, right? All right, number 2, robocalls. Boy, oh boy, they've gotten aggressive on the robocalls. I get one probably once or twice a week. And now, I'm not sure if you have Verizon or AT&T. But on your cell phone, if there's a number that you don't recognize, it now says scam call. Or what I've seen more recently is, let's say you live in, or you were in North Carolina and your number starts with 704. But you now live in Richmond, which is 804, correct? What they're going to do is impersonate your number to be a 704 number or an 804 number that looks close to your number. And then the scam call thing doesn't come up because it's like, oh, maybe it's the same zip code. And maybe that's somebody I know, but I don't have them programmed into my phone. So they're getting really, really creative on the scam tactics. But the robocalls are, I mean, they are all over the place. They happen all the time. Don't ever give out personal information. What I would always recommend, if it's a credit card company, if it's I got one from Target, a scam call from Target. And what I got was, we need your account number. And I said, account number for what? Well, your Target credit card. I don't have a Target credit card. And of course, you heard the quick click, right? You don't ever have to give out an account number. What I would always recommend is, if you do get a credit card call, or you do get a call from like a Target or a big warehouse, big box shop, ask them for their phone number and then call back that number. Or better yet, go onto the website and get their main number and then call back there. But when they start asking about personal information, credit card information, bank account information, run for the hills. Let me just pause for dramatic effect and any questions. No? Yes?
I get at least one call a week of this nature.
Yep.
I get at least one call a week of this nature. And the first thing I do is I ask them for their name.
Yep.
And there may be a pause, but usually I hear.
Yeah. Yeah. Have you heard that in the back?
No.
Gets a call once a week, and when he usually asks the name of the individual, they're done. They click. They're out. You find that when you push back just a little bit, they take the path of least resistance, and they try to find the next scammer.
I'm getting a call every Saturday morning at 9:30. Very foreign voice, same voice. You would think he would stop after I started using bad words. I was going to use a whistle in his ear, and he said, "Just go right ahead, ma'am." And I thought, yeah, this guy's getting nasty.
Yep.
I have now put my home telephone on it has a sleep thing where
Okay.
it does not ring on that particular phone until 10 a.m.
So let me ask you this:
The guy
is it
stopped
on your cell phone or on a landline?
On a landline through Comcast. Now, most of us have Comcast. There's
Okay.
an electric phone through Comcast, regular
Yep.
things you buy it.
Yep.
You can't buy them all the time anymore, these phones.
Okay.
And it was quite helpful now. I don't get the call. He quit calling, and he would not call after about 9:45. But it was obviously foreign.
Yeah. Yeah. So one more piece of advice: if you do get a phone call like that on your cell phone, you can immediately, if it's the same exact number every time, you can block the caller.
It wasn't.
It wasn't the.
He changed.
Like by a number,
It
yep.
every time because that little phone holds
Yep.
a lot of information. It's
Yep.
not a cell phone.
Yeah.
It's regular, and it holds a lot of
Yep.
information.
Yeah, so you can actually, I know on the cell phones, block phone calls
Yes.
or block numbers,
That's easy.
and then they'll continue to tweak the number by a number or two each time. I know it's
Now
It's a pain in the
I used
butt.
to get a lot of those. Those seem to have stopped.
stop. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I have to say this I find personally the most common of all the efforts to scam and get money. This is incredibly popular. I don't know if it's just my number or people find that themselves, but this you haven't been asked for this information, and yet you're getting a phone call for one reason or another. What was the premise of their call?
Thank goodness I've sort of forgotten. But it seems to me the word Target was mentioned somewhere
Target?
in that fairly early morning call
Okay.
when I was sleeping.
Got it.
And now I can't remember. They never got very far.
Yeah.
But just far enough.
Sure. Any others?
Yeah, I think two things that are really key there is never give out account numbers on the phone or social security number on the phone unless you are 100% certain of the person you're speaking with. So, and also don't send those numbers through email because emails are not secure, right? So those numbers, account numbers and social security numbers are a key way for people to commit fraud against you. So never give those out unless you're 100% certain of the person with whom you're speaking.
And then the last thing on this slide before I move on to the next one is the very bottom left here, is the unsolicited emails that ask you to click somewhere in the email. And your antenna should pop up because in most cases, if you look at the recipient of the email where it's come from, it is not target.com. It's not Susie at Target. It is some random email, but yet in the body, at the very bottom, it has a legitimate like Target logo or an Amazon logo. So it does feel a little bit real. But if you look at where the email address came from, the sender, it is very random. It's very strange. It doesn't look legitimate or real coming from a Target or an Amazon or another company. Yes?
One thing you don't have up there, and someone mentioned it to me yesterday and asked me to bring this up, is from the U.S. Post Office.
Okay.
Have you heard of any
No.
of those?
Oh, yes.
You have?
Yes, I
Yes.
have.
Really?
Yes, well, another one of our residents got notification from the post office that she had a package and she had to go pick it up. And there was a certain amount of money that was due before she could pick up the package.
Interesting.
Yeah, she's gotten that twice.
Do you really?
At least once we get that on our email.
Wow.
It comes up.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes. So if you guys didn't hear that in the back, there has been a couple of scams that they've received that there was a package at UPS or USPS.
U.S. Post Office.
U.S. Post Office saying there's a package here ready for you to come pick up.
Right.
We just need payment from you so you can come pick it up.
Another one was she got a card from the post office wishing her a happy day and asked her to respond to that.
In the post. Wow. Yes, sir.
It's one that I've been getting, I don't know how legitimate or illegitimate it is. I got it this morning. This person calls from CVS Pharmacy. Mr. William, my name is Bill Bug, William Bug. Mr. William, you have diabetes. I don't. You have pain in your lower back. Well, I do, but I said, how about your ankles and all?
Yeah.
And I've never taken it far enough to, I'm not sure what they're driving at,
Yeah.
but I got a feeling there may be some device or something that they might be covered by Medicare or they claim to be.
Okay.
Maybe, I don't know.
Okay.
I get that.
Do you really? Okay.
So what I'm hearing is that if it doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right.
Yeah.
Right? If that conversation doesn't feel right to you, you can always call back to CVS or back to the post office and make sure of the legitimacy of what's being said. Yes, ma'am. You had a question?
Would you elaborate on the claim that you said you reverted to your credit card?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
In your first part of your speech, you said that you had been scammed. Would you elaborate on how you stopped that?
Yeah, oh.
What it was?
I didn't. So it was a MoneyGram email that I had gotten. Within minutes, the credit card company sent me a message saying, fraud alert. It was a Chase credit card. And it was within minutes of the email coming in that they said, fraud alert, we're going to stop the charge. So I didn't do anything myself, but the credit card companies are now really good about, they see the habitual payments that you're on. And if it's out of the ordinary, something like that is way random that they pick up on it right away and they stop the charge from going through. Yeah. All right, let's keep rolling here. I'm going to go to the next topic. We've got 8 more to go through, and then we'll just open it up for Q&A. Sweepstakes, folks, this is pretty silly. It really is. I mean, to Tom's point earlier, if you didn't submit an application or write in that I want to, win this prize, you can never win, right? I mean, this is pretty straightforward. But this goes back to my earlier point. They manipulate the caller ID to match your zip code or your area code and numbers that are close to you. Number one, they're often working with lead lists or somehow purchasing list of names people. And they do, what I've learned, is let's say they got 50 names. They're going to press the button and it calls each 50 person at the same time instantly. And if one person picks up first, the other 49 get dropped from the call, and they take that phone call. Their systems have gotten real elaborate to maximize the amount of time and efficiency when they're calling people, and that's how they're doing it. And then, of course, in order for you to win the prize, you have to send in a payment or a fee to take receipt of that prize, that sweepstakes. The Jamaican lottery is hilarious. I mentioned the Prince of Zimbabwe, silly, right? You may have gotten that email as well. But again, same thing here. Sometimes they're asking for wire, looking for prepaid debit cards. Don't ever use your debit card unless you have to. The credit card is way more secure than a debit card. Debit card is like giving someone direct cash. Credit card has way more layers of security built in. So that way, if you pay a credit card, and it is fraudulent, like in my example, they caught it right away. But if I did that with a debit card, or I had a debit card charge, for whatever reason, that's cash going out my bank account immediately. Okay? If they got you on a small charge to receive the prize, and let's say it was $15, it's not usually, it's like $19.99. It's the odd number that hooks you in. And they got you once. Boy, I'm telling you right now, they're coming back for round 2. The numbers are staggering. Over 75% of people that got hooked on time 1 are done a second time. You know how they do it? Oh, Mrs. Jones, so sorry you didn't receive your prize, your sweepstakes, your winnings. Let me send you a refund. I need your bank account information and I'll send you the refunds. Hooked again! It's unreal, but these things happen, and it's unfortunate, but once done once, they're greedy. They're coming back for a second time. All right, let's keep going. Computer tech scams. I see you have an issue. They've dropped malware on your computer. That's why you have an issue. I can help fix it. I just need access to your computer. Go into settings, give me your ISP address, and I'll access your computer. What are they looking for? Accounts? Passwords. Because if you've done it once, they can take the password and try on all the other websites they can see you've gone into. Clickbait, they call it. This one is really tough to... Go ahead.
Yeah, so I don't know if passwords is in here or not, but there are these systems that you actually can use that give you passwords for each place that you have to log in, right? And all you have to do is log into the system. It then creates a random password, say like for your bank account, for CVS or wherever it is that you personally need to log into. But you can look into these secure electronic systems so that you don't use the passwords that are easy and don't replicate passwords from one account to the other, right? Because if they get it for one account, then they're going to go looking for your next account and your next account as well. So look into electronic password that will protect all of your accounts, and you can put them all into that system. I
want to be respectful of your time. Roger just informed me I got 15 minutes left, so I'm going to fly through the next section here. Really quick, before I move on from this one here, everyone know the Geek Squad?
Yes.
Okay, incredibly reputable. Just go into Best Buy and say, I've got a computer issue. Have your son, have your daughter, have a neighbor who can go. Hang up the phone on these folks. Hang up. And have a reputable company take care of your computer. If there was a computer issue they can fix. They can do it same day. All right, next. Who gets victimized the most? Yes. Most common, women, 80 to 89 years of age, living alone. Perpetrators somehow know this through a variation of scams or research. What I have heard is a really good best practice is once we get over age 75, something called power of attorney. Instead of having a broad sweeping power of attorney on all my accounts, you can do it on a single transaction. I need to go to the bank. I need to take out $5,000 for whatever it is. You can do a power of attorney on a single transaction. That way, it's not blanketed across the board on all your accounts. Simple way, Tom can absolutely help you with that if there is a need, but there's a lot of ways to avoid this, but tends to be elders, and it's a perpetual, like you got constant phone call from the same person, same number. This is pretty common. And again, try not to give any bank account information out before you got the name of the person, before you understand what it's for, and you can always hang up and call back the number that you know. All right, the grandparent scam. This one is, I gotta tell you, it's crazy that it continues to happen. But like Tom said, stuck in Mexico, my daughter's stuck in Mexico. I gotta send a wire for $15,000. Unfortunately, happens often. What I've heard recently from somebody else was this. They claim to be a police officer. And I've got your daughter, I've got your son, and I can't release her until I have bail. Okay, officer, what's your badge number? What's your number, and who is your manager? And I'll reach back out. Let me call right back. I get it. They're tugging on the emotional strings of a loved one. I get it. But in that heat of emotion, stop. Take a deep breath and ask, what's your badge number? Can I speak to your manager? What service are you with? It may just say police officer, and that's very generic, right? Let's be a little more granular. This is becoming more popular. The other one is a doctor. Your daughter's very sick. In the hospital, on the doctor, on staff, or on duty. Same thing. What's your number? I've got to call you back. These are becoming very popular because of the emotional hook to a loved one, right? And again, they have gotten that through some correspondence. You sent an email to your son, your daughter, or a loved one, and the name was on that, and they somehow saw that, and now they're coming back to hook, line, and sinker. All right, romance scams. I have not heard of these. And I think this one's interesting because the online dating sites have gotten pretty incredulous. Chat rooms, social media sites, and unsolicited emails from these online dating sites. Listen, if you haven't gone on to an online dating site, you should not be getting a phone call or an email from them. But that happens, right? They're going to spend time cultivating, learning about who you are, getting to know you better, asking about your friends, your family, your pets' names. What happens with passwords? What do we usually send as passwords?
Pet's name.
Pets is the number one, right? A loved one. My daughter's Jerry Joe. That's my password. And maybe a number behind it. But they're eventually going to ask for money or some hook once they've gotten to know you a little better. They're going to call you a third or a fourth time before they do that. But it's that petting scandal, getting in, warming them up. And then on the third call, what can we get, right? Travel expenses, hospital bills. They're going to seek for money, some kind of a laundering activity, whether it be, we're going to buy this, and then they sell it 2 days later, whatever that is. It's pretty, pretty impressive to see what they've done. They got really creative. But know this, If you haven't had any interest, haven't gone onto these sites, you should have no correspondence with them. Okay?
So, again, just to interject, fraudsters often claim to be from the U.S. or a local region, but they have overseas business or family members. Did you know that you can take a picture and drop it into Google, and Google search on the Google search bar now has a little eye there? You can put a picture, click on that little eye and put a picture in there. So if this person has sent you a picture of their face and they're claiming that, you know, hey, this is John or Susan or whatever, and they've sent you the picture of this face, click that picture and drop it into that Google eye search, and it will find that picture on the internet and tell you all the different places where that picture exists. So just a real good tidbit to know that anybody that you don't know, that you haven't seen, but they want an introduction from you, and they're going to send you this picture of a handsome man or a good-looking young lady, click that picture and put it in Google search, and you'll find out if they're real or not. Because chances are it'll be multiple locations if it's a scam.
Something else, to Tom's point, they also said they're from the U.S., but then you hear that accent. I think it was one of you gals over here. You hear that, you know, international accent. They're not from the U.S. Again, antenna should go up right away. All right, we have two more. We doing okay? Are you guys at like a complete absorption rate? Good? All right. Social Security impersonations, big one. Same thing here again, just as a reminder. Get the name of the agent. A Social Security agent is what they should go by, and their phone number. If you get a call from a Social Security agent, they will give you a direct line phone number. There are some here right in Richmond. It should be the 804 number. It should not be 213 or 212, which was out of New York. But antenna should go up if you hear that number, 212 or another number. They're going to suggest they help complete applications and help you walk through the application process. This is very common. Obtain a new card, a Medicare, Medicaid card. We can help you with that. Okay? How many people have gotten a phone call from a Social Security agent? Probably very few. This one has gotten really debunked, and we were seeing a lot less of these scams, but this was way, way more popular back in the late 90s, early 2000s, and this is becoming a little bit less, because I think people are way more aware that Social Security system is way more secure than people calling out and et cetera. But that, I did hear last year that somebody got their Social Security number suspended, and they needed to call back and help get that addressed. And I'm like, Social Security numbers don't get suspended. They don't. It's yours. So, anyways, antenna should go up. All right. And pending lawsuits. Yes, this is a big one. They could be calling you from a local federal government. There's a warrant out for your arrest, and we need to address this ASAP. Same thing, asking for a bank account. How can we help get this addressed right away? It's $10,000 for this lawsuit, but we can sell it today for $1,500. Really? Really? Antenna should go up. Not possible. Doesn't happen. It's interesting because the one thing I did hear was the jury and the jury duty. That's another one that comes up. I think this is in here somewhere. Yeah. Callers have to say their arrest warrant was issued for failing to report for jury duty. Okay, you don't get arrested for not showing up to jury duty. You might get a nasty email or nasty agreement in the mail, but you certainly won't get a phone call that you're being arrested for not showing up to jury duty. It doesn't happen. Okay, it is your civic duty. You should do it. But if you don't show up, you're not getting arrested. I promise. All right, and lastly, identity theft as a whole. Again, banking on access. Don't give your personal information out unless you've validated who the source is. What is the firm? Is it Target? Is it Amazon? Is it the IRS? Is it Social Security? It's such an easy thing to do, but I know in the heat of emotions when it comes to like my sons or daughters, and they're pulling on your heartstrings for that, take a deep breath. Take a minute and get the information who's calling you. What's the phone number I can call you back on? Do your own research. If it's Target on their website has a contact us number at the very bottom of the website. Click on that, and I guarantee you it's a different number than they just gave you. Okay? So lots of ways that we can help ourselves get ahead of this and be educated. Knowledge is power. It's critical we know how to preserve our own health and safety and not be scammed. Down here, one thing that I did want to say is best practices. Some of you are writing notes down. One thing I always recommend is, certainly with Tom said, when it comes to financials, if you've had a death in the family, if you've gotten divorced, speak with your financial advisor and make sure that your records are updated to reflect proper beneficiaries. Number two, if you've had old accounts, a credit card, a checking account, or an old account you're not using anymore, close it down. That limits your exposure to getting frauded for an account that's not even open anymore. Okay? Credit freeze. If you've gotten defrauded, my company, it was Chase Credit Card, is now offering for 90 days credit monitoring service called yes, that one. I don't remember. But for 90 days, if there's a random charge, I'm going to get direct contact, phone call, and an email, and a text message, and it goes out saying, hey, listen, just an FYI, there may be an issue here. So you can always ask for credit card companies or other ways to have monitoring on your credits for anything that's being charged. And of course, Federal Trade Commission and local police are your best resources if there is an issue to reach out to them first.
It's very difficult to get a hold of the Federal Trade Commission. I promise. In fact, I failed.
I've never tried,
Look at it.
but I can imagine that's the case, yeah.
I have 6 of those credits frauds right now, of those credits stolen information. 6 different companies, good companies.
Wow.
And I've frozen and fraud alerted everything.
Every one of them?
And it's Experian, I think, you
Yep.
cannot get in touch with.
Equifax you can.
Equifax you can, TransUnion you can,
Yep.
Experian,
Yes.
I don't know what's wrong with them.
So I don't know if you guys heard that in the back. There are 3 agencies, credit agencies, Experian, Equifax, and
TransUnion.
TransUnion. Those are the 3. She's right. Equifax is probably the toughest to get, Experian is the toughest if you're even able to get a hold of them. But if there is an issue, you can easily get in touch with TransUnion and Equifax.
And they've all gone to using Filipinos for, the Filipino travel. They're using that.
Yep.
And where do they think our information is going?
Yep.
To the Philippines.
Yeah. Yep.
I mean, nobody's stupid here.
Yeah.
And in the United States, it's just.
Yeah.
So she's speaking about TransUnion, Equifax, and Experian. One of the things that everyone has a right to is to get an annual credit report from each of those companies, right? So that you can track and see what's going on with your credit. My recommendation is to use them staggered 4 months apart. That way, you get one from TransUnion in January, you get one from Equifax in May, and you get one from Experian in September, and then you start the cycle over. So instead of getting all 3 of them at one time, which only gives you a snapshot of that time period, stagger them and get one from each credit reporting agency 4 months apart.
That's a good idea. You can spend days on a computer doing this, not to mention the time.
So, but it's a great way to, to protect yourself. One of the other things that we're talking about is credit cards and debit cards. Do not use debit cards to make purchases out in public. They have all those credit card readers that are also taking your bank account information when you use a debit card, and they can go right in, and whatever's in there can be cleaned out. So don't use debit cards to make purchases. Another recommendation I have is we all have credit cards, and many of us have had the same credit card for years. So that credit limit has built up and built up and built up, right? Get a credit card with a very low credit limit to do your daily purchases on, instead of using a credit card that has a 10, 15, 20, sometimes I've seen clients with $40,000 credit limits. But get one that has a very small credit limit to do your daily purchases and then just pay that off every month instead of having a big credit limit card that you carry around and use. Yes, ma'am.
Another thing to keep in mind using a debit card, if you can, or a credit card rather, if you can tap rather than insert, the tap gives them less information, so always tap when you can.
Right, so she's talking about the credit cards now that you can tap it instead of scanning it. And the tapping eliminates the ability for it to be read and used against you. Yes, sir.
What do you think the long-term impact of AI is going to be on this business?
I wish I knew, but it's smarter than I am, so I don't know. But it's,
Repeat the question.
yeah, the question was, what's the long-term impact of alternative intelligence, AI?
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial. It's also alternative.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence, and I wish I knew, but it's more and more in the news. So you have to be aware that computers are becoming more and more powerful, and more information is being exchanged out there, really against their will and against their knowledge. But I'm not sure what that impact is going to be.
The other thing is most credit card companies offer you the ability to have a virtual credit card number that you can use for online transactions and that type of thing. That way, if your credit card gets compromised, you just kill that virtual number and you keep the base.
The physical card, yeah.
Keep the base number.
So did everybody hear that? The
No.
credit card companies are offering a virtual number that you can attach to your credit card, but you can use it for a single transaction. And that way your real credit card number is not out there. Thank you. Yes, sir.
One thing we do is use one credit card if we use it online or.
Grocery store purchases, yeah.
So if the card is compromised, I don't have.
Exposure to, yeah.
Right. Use of a single credit card for online purchases.
For that.
Right.
Yeah. I will say, I mean, I can't directly address the AI comment, but what I can say is that if you are good about protecting the security of your own personal data, your credit cards, your debit cards, AI primarily is trying to, insert themselves online. So by limiting the online exposure, you'll eliminate or limit the AI exposure as well. I know that's not a perfect answer or science, but I will tell you this, and Tom mentioned this, but on the last slide here, debit cards, try to minimize that as much as you can. Credit cards, like Tom said, get a low limit purchase credit card, and then sign up. This is something that we did, my wife and I did. Whenever you do have purchases come through for a credit card, most allow you to sign up for notifications that come via text. So that way you're not like, wait a minute, I didn't just charge $1,000, but it shows up real time in your inbox or your text messaging vis-a-vis a notification. Yes.
I have one thing that happened the other day. We have an Apple computer.
Okay.
It's old. I often call Apple for a lot of things. I was doing Cedar Field Sudoku. Sudoku the
Yep,
other
sure.
day. Up popped red alerts, scam alerts, McAfee. Now this is on an Apple computer,
Okay.
and I just cut everything off, cut it back on. It did it a second time, which I thought was amazing because Apple is so protected.
Yeah.
I cut everything off, called Apple on the phone. I got a great Canadian lady who could speak English, knew everything. She said, well, good thing you just erased it because that's not going to happen for real on an Apple computer.
Huh.
So I knew to cut it off.
What you think?
And it is scary when it's covering your, it used to happen on Microsoft a lot.
Yeah.
But with Apple, it had never happened before. But this was Cedar Field's Sudoku.
Wow.
So that means they've been caught.
There may be a
Been
virus. Did they detect a virus on your computer?
No,
No.
nothing. It's never, it's all fake.
Huh.
And that's what Apple.
That sounds
tells
like
you.
more like the clickbait where you click on the.
Yes.
Oh, I got an
Exactly.
issue. Let me click on that. That's what they call clickbait.
Yes.
And by going in that way, they now have access to your portals, your
And I
passwords.
just warned it because it was
Yeah.
it was directly on the Cedar Field
Yeah.
website.
You want to just repeat the question, Tom, or the comment?
So, yes, she was saying that she got an alert on her Apple computer that McAfee said that there was a problem. Turned the computer off, rebooted it, got the same alert, turned it off, got it a second time, and then called Apple to find out if there was actually an issue. So you just have to be careful that you're not, just because it says McAfee, it may not be, it could be something fraudulent too, and if you click on it to open up that alert, that could be the way that they access your computer.
Apple has no McAfee. They don't do McAfee.
Yeah.
Roger, how's their time?
They have malware, yeah.
We're doing good. I'm going to ask you on the spot before we finish.
Sure.
Would you, between you, give us a 1, 2, 3? What's the 1, 2, 3 takeaway that we should remember today?
I'll start.
All right.
I would say be diligent. Number one, be diligent. As I said today before I started my presentation, knowledge is power. Taking any one of these top 10 fraudulent or scams or considerations and knowing how to protect yourself is number one. Number two, minimize your exposure, to Tom's point earlier. Maybe get that one credit card just for the online transactions and have a low amount. That minimizes and limits your exposure, because if that card gets compromised, what's your limit? Like, what's your real exposure? It might be minimal. And then lastly, if you have gotten frauded, scammed for anything at all, make sure that you get in touch with, I think the local police is probably the best place to start. And of course, if it's done through a credit card company, many credit card companies now have provisions set up to help you so that you're not directly impacted, and they'll absorb whatever costs there are from that credit card transaction that was fraudulent.
Yes, I think for me, it's protection of account numbers and social security numbers. Don't ever give those out over the phone unless you are 100% sure with whom you're speaking, right? So if you were to call me, you're my client, and you call me and say, this is Joan Baez, and I say, well, Joan, can you tell me the last four numbers of your account number, right? It's verification. Those last four numbers, if I really know your account number and know who you are going to tell me all that I need to know, right? But don't give out your whole account numbers, don't give out your social security number. 2, do not use debit cards when you're making purchases out in public. Use a credit card. And I think 3 is just be aware, we all have that gut feeling, right? We all get gut feelings. If your gut is telling you that this doesn't sound right, doesn't feel right, it probably isn't right. And that's a cue to say, if it's on the phone, let me get your name, your employee ID, and your phone number, and I'll call back. And then you go find whoever they said they represented, you find the main number for that company and call that number. Don't call the number back that they give you, because that number that they are using sometimes has the ability to come back and feed back in and gather information about you. So I think it's goes to Kyle, being diligent, use your gut, and just stay alert, because it's out there and it's rampant.
Tom and Kyle, thank you so much. Cedarfield, let's give them They have provided us with the slides. This is a set of the slides. They're like 10 copies. If they disappear and you want more, let us know. We can, Georgia can make some more copies. But only if you're really serious, take these in the back. We want to thank you, Eddie, everybody. Thank you for making this possible here and so smooth. And Charlotte has a couple of announcements real quick.
Don't leave yet. You'll like what I had to say.
And just real quick, I had a sign-in sheet out there because of compliance in my industry. I'm required to turn in my sign-in sheet to compliance. So if you didn't sign in, I would
Please
appreciate
sign
if
in.
you
Yeah.
please do. And my business cards are there as well if you care to take one.
Yeah, so Bob, would you be sure,
You didn't hear me.
Bob, would you be sure to catch people as they're going out with the sign up? Thank you so much.
Right here on the
On the low round table.
you have to bend over.
Yeah.
Thank you,
Oh,
everyone.
I'm sorry. Thank you all very much. Just a couple of quick announcements. Our membership, yes, our membership is 200. 200. Wouldn't it be nice to have more than 200? Let's try for next month, maybe 210. Let's try that. Your renewals is what's keeping us going. So please, when we contact you and say your year is up, it's time for a renewal, please renew with us. This is very important. It says something about how strong our organization is, who we are, what we're all about. Thank you for don't go. Don't go. I got one more quick announcement. On Tuesday evening, Pinnacle Board was here to have dinner and a social evening with 7 residents. I think all 7 of the residents felt that it was a successful evening in that we started talking with each other, not business, but to get to know each other. It was a very positive evening. We hope this is a first baby step, and we'll keep you posted. We hope we'll be able to continue the conversation to get a resident on the board. Keep your fingers crossed.